Adam, listen, Erik ten Hag, he's still here. We were thinking, would he not be? That Sebastian Hoeneß has been sounded out, as apparently, by Ineos, a few other managers. Who does that look worse on? Ineos for talking about different managers still, or Ten Hag to show that actually the vote of confidence maybe still isn't there?
I think overall as a club, because Ineos are obviously not appealing to many managers with their structure, it would seem. We talked about Tuchel and why he turned us down and why we might have to go back to him because he's the only man available. Hoeneß, we've talked about there, amongst McKenna, amongst others that were spoken to in the summer while Ten Hag was still in his job. No one really convinced as to what Ineos are offering and how they want to operate at Manchester United. And then again, you look at Ten Hag and another manager that Ineos has spoken to behind his back. Not so much behind his back. I mean, to be honest, I don't have a problem with it. It's a ownership model, having a plan B and just making sure they've got a contingency in place. I've got no issue with that. Like United's news always gets spread out across all of the media. It's just what happens with United. But for Ten Hag, we've all known that the writing's been on the wall for a while. Performances you're not going to get away with. Worst ever start to a season last season, followed by the worst ever finish, followed by the worst ever start again this season. You can't argue with the results, I'm afraid, and 14th in the league is why all of these stories are coming out now. Again, people are digging more because they want to know why United haven't pulled the plug on Ten Hag.
Angelina, I mean, we all saw that meeting on last Tuesday and we were all sort of locked in with anticipation for maybe a big decision. And Ineos sort of went, normal day, mate, normal board meeting. We don't need to tell you guys anything. This is just as you were. Were you surprised by that? And do you think that actually that day was probably more hyped up by fans in anticipation for Ten Hag leaving rather than actually what that meeting was?
For me, the biggest thing of that is that it was like a 7-hour meeting. Who needs a 7-hour meeting? Like, you guys are great, but I could not sit in a 7-hour meeting.
But if we run Man United, we might.
I'd lose my mind. Like, I can't. That, to me, why is it 7 hours? And you come out of it with nothing to say. Fair enough, they're saying that this is a regular meeting and we don't...
this was always scheduled in.
We don't come out and say... So maybe it was a little bit overhyped, but for me, I just had to sit there for a minute and think, this is 7 hours, nothing's been announced. What are they doing? Like, surely they speak quite often anyway. You telling me they don't have, like, a WhatsApp chat or something like this whole 7 hours
What, just
for
sending
me?
voice to Jim, just sending voice notes to try around the club?
That was rubbish, wasn't it? Yeah. That, to me, was the first bit I had to get over. I'm not surprised. I think it's really tricky with this situation because if they pull the plug, whatever decision they make, I think I've said this before, you know, they're going to look foolish because if they pull the plug now, it's like, well, why did you give him a contract extension? You know, why have you brought in all these players that he wanted? Why didn't you make a decision when you were interviewing people? But I feel like the longer this goes on, the more foolish they're going to look. So even though people will have questions if they pulled the plug now, if they carry on with this, it'll be like, you know, why did you carry it until Christmas? Why did you carry it until January or whatever? However this looks, they know that they're going to look a little bit foolish, but very foolish. But this whole thing with Ten Hag, and we've sat and we've really tried to back him, and I genuinely did think that he was going to go in the international break. On paper, those 2 draws actually look quite good. What we saw on the pitch wasn't great, but on paper, they do look OK. But for me, it's just more this whole, you know, he comes out and he's talking about, oh, we've got 4 clean sheets. If he's just grasping at straws, like if that's the main thing that Man United are looking, oh, we've got 4 clean sheets, great. Yeah, we're still 5 points off relegation. Like that isn't good enough. So I wasn't surprised because of those 2 draws. And I think you look at the fixtures that we've got, you know, Brentford, Fenerbahce, we're playing Leicester twice, we've got West Ham. It'll be very interesting to see how those games go. But I think if he has another bad spell, that's a great way for them to then pull the plug.
I mean, Crook, do you think Ineos are delaying the inevitable? Is this bringing more negativity to the club as it is? Or do you think actually it kind of is strong leadership to basically not listen to the fans, stick with what they thought would be a decent plan and give him another run of, 7 games in about 3 weeks up until the next international break?
Well, we've become a bit of a banter club, haven't we? And
absolutely.
Every other big club in the Premier League, if you're a fan of one of those teams, they're rejoicing in the fact that Erik ten Hag is still in situ because they don't think he's a threat. And I've got to say, on what we've seen so far this season, they might be right. Having said that, when you get fans from clubs like Tottenham mocking the fact that he won the FA Cup last season, but literally, when was the last time you won anything meaningful? So let's not take away those achievements. Is it strong leadership from Ineos? Potentially. I think it's right that they're trying seemingly to find the perfect candidate before pulling the trigger, because it's very easy to fire a manager.
Sacking with no plan will be fuming.
It's very difficult to find a suitable replacement. My hunch is still that if they do have to pull the trigger between now and the November break, then Ruud van Nistelrooy would probably become interim manager for the foreseeable future. But as we've spoken about on this programme before, it's a massive step up when you look at what he's done, what little he's done in his managerial career to date, to take on a club that is the size and stature of Manchester United. Looks like Thomas Tuchel, as we sit here now, is the main contender to become the New England manager, so maybe his name will be taken off the table. The best news for me that's come out in the last week or so is that Gareth Southgate doesn't want a job for a year.
himself out.
Hallelujah for that. But it does leave a dearth of obvious candidates.
Do you think, just really quickly on the Thomas Tuchel situation, and so, apparently, like say, reporting that England are, in talks with him for the England job, do you think that could entice Ineos into something where you said if they do want him, they might have to abandon the plans they did have because he might go to England? Or do you think that actually they would step away from that anyway and go in a different direction?
I think they'd probably step away because, as I understand it, it's not a unanimous verdict that Tuchel is the man they want. They held talks in the summer. They couldn't agree terms then. Again, we have to rewrite the narrative a little bit in the summer. It wasn't really that Ineos decided Ten Hag was the best man for the job. It was that for one reason or another, they couldn't find a potential replacement. I'm told that Roberto De Zerbi even turned his nose up at the job and then obviously went to Marseille. So it's a problem in terms of what calibre of manager they can actually get through the door at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, Adam, just before we move on to the actual Brentford game, in terms of the manager that Man United should be looking at, do you think it should be experienced? Do you think it should be someone who's been there and done it at top clubs before, so wait until that's available? Or are you quite happy to go with inexperience, not really knowing what that brings, and there's enough evidence of other clubs going in that direction that why not us?
It's important what Alex said there in terms of they went to Tuchel in the summer and they couldn't agree then. So I don't want Ineos now to all of a sudden, we desperately need a man. We're going to change our plan, please come. They need to stick to their plan. Obviously, I don't want to say the word process. I hate it because I slack it up and it comes out of Ten Hag's
But you're going to say it anyway.
It's there, isn't it? They are obviously moving big pieces into place for how they want to run Manchester United. They have to stick to their guns. They'll have a manager that when you can look at all of the names mentioned, they're all of the younger super coach variety, I feel, that are going to work within a structure. And I feel like the experienced one, where that works, and you can deal with high-profile players. Who is high-profile at Manchester United right now? We're moving forward. The players that have been brought in by Ineos, I think, are all of a younger generation that's going to work with a coach that works under their structure. So I don't actually, the more I think about it, I don't actually see it being the experienced manager anymore at Manchester United. I think they want to go in a different direction. And everything that they've done is pointing in that way for me.